Good morning, strength seekers, and thanks for being here. Welcome to part one of our nutrition workshop with Chanel Stuck, a menopause nutritionist who works with a lot of athletes. And that's what we're here for, because regardless of your age, you're an athlete. If you exercise, you're an athlete. She's going to teach us some tips and tricks and some really valuable information on how to eat to fuel our performance at our age and beyond to make us awesome. So thanks for being here, Chanel, and take it away.
Great. So excited to be here. And thank you for having me. I am going to share my screen. I have a presentation to kind of talk us through and keep me on track because I'm actually really good at talking. So I'm mindful of our time. So it helps me kind of stay focused. So I am here talking to you, but you're going to see the screen. Hopefully you can all see this. And I am going to just go through and talk. Obviously, we're doing a 2-week, 2-part. So we've got week 1 this week. We're going to talk through kind of nutrition 101, macros, micros, changing our body composition. Often in this space, like we are not necessarily happy with our body composition. And we're going to talk a little bit about that and fueling for training. And then we'll do some questions, which I'm sure you guys will have. So you guys may not know who I am. So just quickly, I'm married to Gary. We have 3 daughters and only one at home now. So not quite empty nesters. But I am, like Leanne said, a nutritionist, a sports nutritionist. I'm also a health coach. I'm a qualified keto coach as well. I am also an athlete myself, a CrossFit athlete. Recently just competed at the Down Under Champs. So I live this as well as teaching it. And I'm based in Brisbane, originally born in New Zealand. Now we're going to start with what is food. Now this sounds simple, but honestly, working with hundreds of women and people, generally we think we know what we're eating. However, it's amazing how either what we're taught in school, which probably was outdated if you're all my age, is just, it's not reiterated in our society. So we're going to talk a little bit about obviously what food is, understanding how it gives us energy, mood, focus, changes our body composition depending on how we eat, sleep, skin, digestion, muscles. Basically, food is it is the foundation of our health and wellness. And when we don't really understand how it works properly, we possibly could be messing up what we're doing from not just, our sport, but just how we feel and we're living. So, of course, we have our macronutrients, and we're going to talk through those a little bit so we understand what they do. So we've got carbohydrates, fats, and proteins. Carbohydrates are only in our diet for energy purposes. And I think this is something people don't understand. So I understand you guys, this audience, are athletes. So you're generally like training and, whether you're competing or not, like Leanne said, we're all athletes. There's a varying degree of scale of what that looks like, but we need carbohydrates to fuel our activity. So if you are sedentary, your need for carbohydrates is obviously a lot less. We're talking to athletes here today, so we do need carbohydrates to fuel our training and our life. So there's no point training, fueling for training, and then we're exhausted for the rest of the day. That is not serving us either. So we need to be able to train for our fuel for our training, but then also know that we have enough energy for the rest of the day. And we're going to talk a bit more about that as we go on. So we have 4 calories per gram with carbohydrates. It's a primary fuel source for our brain. It's the most easily overconsumed macronutrient because often we eat carbohydrates by themselves, and depending on the type of carbohydrates, they don't fill us up. So we're going to talk a bit more about like balancing our plate. and making sure we're not just eating carbohydrates by themselves, unless it's specifically for training purposes, because there's different, I guess, consequences to not balancing our macronutrients. Um, so the next one we're going to talk about is our fats. We need fats. They are also a fuel source for the body. When we're talking about sports nutrition, fuel sources and the body's ability to use different fuel sources in the body happens around heart rate variability. So depending on what heart rate you're operating at is what fuel source your body will use, whether it's carbohydrates or fats. It will always be a combination because there's never just one fuel source being used at a time. Fats are really important for other functions in the body. So carbohydrates, like I said before, are only for activity. That's the only job they do. Fats also have other jobs to do in the body. They help with hormone signaling, cell reproduction. They are probably the most easily overconsumed because they have 9 calories per gram, or more than double of carbohydrates and proteins. So they're very easy for us to overconsume because we need less of them because they hold more calories, if you like, when we're looking from a size point of view. And we'll talk a bit more about this. So I am a protein forward nutritionist, and you can see from the list of benefits that protein gives us. We have blood sugar stability. We build and keep muscle. It gives us energy. It does help change our body composition, helps reduce cravings, recover from exercise. It's satiating and keeps us fuller for longer. And the reason for that is the next point. It has the highest thermic effect. So out of the 3 macronutrients, our body actually, it takes energy to digest our food. Protein takes the most amount of energy to digest. And that is because we have something called protein muscle synthesis that is triggered when we eat more than 30 grams of protein at a time. So that is what helps us build muscle. And that is a big kind of energy expenditure in the body. And this is why we think we use so much more energy when we are digesting protein. It is also essential for our hair, skin, nails, joints, connective tissues, enzymes for digesting food, antibodies for immunity. It helps lower blood pressure, helps lower heart disease, helps repair after surgery. Now, the recommended dietary allowance for protein is set to 0.8 grams per kilogram. And if you're working in another country and you're working in pounds, it's actually, they don't have a conversion to pounds. They actually use this in America as well. But this was set in the war. I just want to talk about this quickly because people will often tell me that they think they're hitting their protein requirements. This recommended dietary allowance is set for us to survive, not to thrive. So this is for us not to die. So I want to make this clear because I personally prescribe 2 grams per kilo of body weight. I actually hit 2.2 myself. And so that is a far cry from 0.8. So generally, when I see a lot of women in my clinic, they are not even hitting this minimum. And you can see from the list of benefits, there's a big consequence to that. So I just wanted you to understand that the recommended dietary allowance is the minimum required dose. That is a big far cry from being able to thrive, in our life. Now, quickly, we're just going to touch on micronutrients. Now, the reason I'm kind of going through this is because I want you to understand, and I feel like generally a lot of people just don't understand how important having good nutrition is. So our micronutrients are our minerals and vitamins, and they come from all of the fruits and vegetables, all of the variety of foods we have. So when we And say, if you look at, this is one thing we do get told, to eat our veggies, this is because it's really important to get our minerals and vitamins. And of course, we can supplement, but we can actually, if we're eating our veggies and fruits and vegetables, we can get a lot of our minerals and vitamins and the things we need and the diversity we need for our gut microbiome by having a good, healthy diet. So this is really important. And I think it's not kind of, I suppose, taught well enough. Okay, so when we're looking at changing our body composition, and the reason I want to touch on this is because this is where I see, I guess, some challenges or issues arise in our age group, kind of 40 plus, because generally a lot of, it's hard for me to put a figure out, probably 95% of women, maybe more, 98% of women from 40 plus are not happy with their physiques. So they're in the gym and they're trying to, work out and get stronger. But their process for wanting to change their body composition at the same time is lending them into not understanding that, one, they're not fueling themselves correctly. That is affecting their ability to change their body composition, but also their sport or exercise that they're trying to achieve at the same time. 80% of your body composition will come through your nutrition and 20% from your exercise. So we have a lot more times in the day. Like if you think about how many times in the day you are currently eating, like I only eat 3 meals a day, but maybe you're eating 5 times a day. And there's 5 times that you could be messing this up. Whereas when you go to the gym, you're just really working out once a day. There's one time a day you could kind of mess that up. So you can see how it's way easier for us to not get our body composition goals because we don't understand what we're putting in our mouth is so important. So obviously changing our body composition, nutrition, exercise 20%, then working out to build muscle. Now I feel like everyone listening to this will be doing that because Leanne has got you sorted. Lifting heavy is essential. And we're not talking about burning calories. We're talking about focusing on building muscle. The more muscle that we have on our body, the more calories that we burn anyway. But the more muscle we have on our body, this isn't just for being fitter, faster, stronger. It's for how long we're going to live. Like muscle equals longevity. So it also will protect, obviously, our organs and bones as we age, because from the age of 30, we start losing our muscle mass. So we're fighting that 1% every year if we're not doing something about it. And we obviously need to make sure we're progressively overloading. So I know Leanne will have you organized with that kind of side of things. So the reason I'm talking about weight loss is because we have this blurred vision often that's crossing over where we're trying to, do our sport, but we're also trying to change our body composition at the same time. Now, the reason I wanted to touch on this is because what happens is in this scenario is that we often then end up underfueling. And then this actually is detrimental to not only our body composition goals, but also our chance of doing the best job we can for our sport. Like I feel all of you guys are lifting. So, if you're not fueling your body correctly, then you're not going to be able to lift as heavy as you can. So we have to understand that if we, and it's the difficult because if you, in my age group of, I guess, 40 plus, we have been conditioned to change our body composition. We just eat less and exercise more. Now that might have worked for us when we were, 20 or before we turned 40. And I certainly did it myself. Like after my eldest daughter was born, I put on 17 kilos and I just ate less and exercised more. And it didn't happen straight away, but I got the weight off. Now that process does not work anymore once the hormones kick in. So I'm going to just talk through a scenario around this because I feel like this is a conversation I have very often. And some of you might hear yourself in this conversation, and then we can talk about how we correct it. So often I will have someone in this situation where they want to get stronger, they want to build muscle, but they want to get rid of the belly fat that menopause has very kindly given them. And I can talk to this because this was me as well. I really got the menopausal belly fat, like when the hormones started changing, and I found it super frustrating. And it took me a while to realize that the whole exercise more, eat less thing didn't work. So, I might be having this conversation with someone, getting them to talk me through what they eat in a day, and they're like, okay, so they think, right, I want to lose this belly fat. Right, I'm just going to eat less. So they've, started the day, maybe they've grabbed a piece of toast for breakfast with a coffee. They're having a sad salad for lunch. And by sad salad, I mean there's no protein there. It's really like very low in calories. They think they're doing great because then they've gone to the gym and they've kind of got through their workout. They've got home and they've found themselves in the cupboards or the fridge or the pantry, and they can't get out because the cravings are so bad that they've just eaten a whole packet of chips or burnt through a packet of Tim Tams. And that is because you have been, under eating all day, and your body is actually quite smart and knows that the quickest amount of calories are going to come from the bag of chips or the packet of Tim Tams. That doesn't make you feel full, doesn't make you feel satiated. We can eat, 700 calories like that and still not feel full. Then we go on, feel guilty after that, have dinner, and then kind of repeat the whole process the next day. Not getting any gains in the gym, not changing our body composition because we have missed our protein. We've basically starved out, well, not starved our body, but under-eaten our calories. And this is the cycle that repeats. Now, I have this conversation so often, and so many women that come through and do my program, or I work with them on one-on-one, and they've literally are like, I have just never eaten this much food in my whole life. So we get to a point where we are so used to and starving ourselves. That's not the right. It's just under eating. We have got so used to not eating enough food that is the normal, that when we actually eat a proper balanced diet, we feel so full, it is so foreign. And we have to overcome the fact that we're actually eating the right amount of food, and we have to overcome that psychologically because we are so conditioned to just under eat. So this is the, I guess, conditioning that our generation have grown up with, and we need to override. Now, some of the reason we're in this spot is because of society as well. We are so confused about what to eat, when to eat. Do we eat low carb? Do we eat no carbs? Are carbs good for us? Are they bad for us? Should I be eating keto? Should I be doing intermittent fasting? There's so much information, and people are completely overwhelmed and, don't know what to do. So there's a real carb phobic, I guess, situation happening because of the low carb movement. And this is why I wanted to go through kind of understanding nutrition, so you get a base of why we're eating certain foods and when. So I can speak to this too because I've been through everything myself. I've done keto. I actually am a qualified keto coach. So when I studied ketosis, I did the keto diet. I don't really recommend that as a base diet for anyone that doesn't have some kind of reason for doing it. So the keto diet or maybe the carnivore diet are more therapeutic type of diets. I personally believe that the macronutrients we just looked at and you just learnt about are all important and necessary in our diets. Now, in saying that, I have had one or two clients, maybe three at the most, who maybe three, that have either done the keto diet or a carnivore diet. They have had very serious health challenges. Like, one guy I treated has, he had cancer, like someone else was morbidly obese. I just merged overweight and obese then, obese, and the keto diet was a good start for her. However, then we switched to high protein. So I don't personally recommend keto or carnivore for the general population because I do believe that those macronutrients are important, and each of those things like carbohydrates, fats, and proteins are necessary for us to be healthy and function well, especially like we've got here for training. So understanding that carbohydrates are needed for activity, then you need to understand then, okay, how does that look? What does it look like? Now, this is also coming from me who used to train fasted, and I did that for many years, and now I don't. So that is, some of that's due to like education and seeing the research and science and putting it into place myself. So I'm hoping that as you learn here today, and maybe you're hearing yourself going, well, I train fasted and it's been working for me. That's how I felt as well before I understood what carbohydrates did and why, and also tested it for myself. So what I encourage people to do is, obviously today we're here learning and hearing the education, then we need to put that into practice. So maybe you test this for like a couple of weeks, and then you can decide whether you feel like that made a difference or not. I know what the research and science says. However, I've been in both camps, and I now always will eat before I train, regardless of what time of the day it is. So this is a reformed person who used to train fasted. So you can train fasted, and I'll talk about why that is. It's whether you want to perform your best or you want to just perform. So you can train fasted because we actually do store glycogen in our muscle and our liver. So that we store about if we look at the 140 grams of protein that we're looking at for recovery purposes and all of that list from the protein, then we're going to look at splitting it. I tend to look at splitting it across the day. Now, the research shows that actually bookending the first meal and the last meal of the day are the most important. However, if you're trying to eat 140 grams of protein, I'm just telling you this from personal experience, it's actually not that easy to do in 2 sittings. That's 70 grams of protein each time. So I tend to encourage people to split it across the day, split it up across like breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And then you can, of course, use like a protein shake or something to like help finish that off. So for argument's sake, let's say we're going to, I personally like to make breakfast a good chunk, like 40 to 50 grams, because there's some really good research to show when we really hit the day, start the day with a good dose of protein, it changes our hunger hormones for the rest of the day. So it impacts our ability to snack and crave things and that sort of thing. So really hitting like 40 to 50 grams at breakfast can make a real big difference. And then, like even if we say 40 grams for breakfast, 30 grams for lunch, and 30 grams, or actually, to be honest, most people do a good job of hitting their protein at dinner. We do that. We have our meat and veg, but you can see if we go 40 at breakfast, 30 and 30, we've got 100 there, and we've still got 40. So you can see how if we're not making a good effort at splitting our protein across the day, it's quite easy to miss the 140 grams. So, a better way would be to do 40 at each meal. That's 120, and maybe have a protein shake, and that finishes you off. So the other thing I just want you to know is I know there'll be some people listening to this who may not understand where that protein comes from. Now, next week, you're going to get lots of kind of inclusions, if you like, some cheat sheets, and I'll make sure there's some protein cheat sheets in there for you. That will kind of explain to you a bit more about where protein comes from in food. Now, some of the examples I'll give you with that is someone will be like listening to this going, 140 grams of protein. Okay, I can do that. Like I've got a 120 gram piece of chicken breast here. Like that's pretty much my whole protein for the day. 120 gram piece of chicken breast is probably about 35 grams of protein. So I just want you to understand that, and eggs are another really good example. A 70 gram egg, because eggs are kind of sold by the grams if you have a look. So say a 70 gram egg has 7 grams of protein. So someone will say to me, oh, I had 2 eggs on toast, I hit my protein. That's 14 grams of protein. When you're trying to hit 140 grams of protein a day, you're a far cry from 140 grams when you've got 14 grams for breakfast. So you have to understand where the protein is in your food to help you make those decisions. And next week, we're going to put this into kind of practical use. I'm going to show you how you're going to plan your day out and give you some recipes, some of my favorite recipes to help. But you can understand that it's not just about the weight of the food, it's about how much protein is in that food, and that's what's important. So meal planning and meal prepping is really going to be one of the things that we talk about next week. I do have a meal prep cheat sheet for those of you watching. This slide will be repeated next week as well, and you'll be able to access that. But if you take down the link here, you can just access this meal prep cheat sheet. And this gives you all of my tips and tricks for meal prepping, because when we can plan our food in advance, so I really teach this on my programs and when I'm working with my clients, generally for me, I do it Sunday night before dinner, and this allows me to set myself up for success. So when we're talking about hitting our protein, I know that when I go to the fridge today at lunch, I've got a chicken pasta Caesar salad in there that's already done. Like I've already made it, and I don't have to worry about it because it's good to go. So prepping your food makes pretty much you set yourself up for success. Now, I did just chuck this in here because I do run some free protein challenges. I won't be doing another one this year. It'll be next year now, but just so you guys know, and you can kind of keep it on your radar that that if this is something that you need help with, then jumping into the free protein challenges is a really great way to be able to really learn how to maximize and hit your protein requirement.
I'm not sure where she's gone, but I'm sure she's coming back. She might have just dropped out for a second. So I'll take over from there with questions. Here she is.
Did you? I'm
She's
like,
back. I knew she'd
please,
come back.
please tell me that you heard all of that.
Yeah, we did.
I'm like, did I just talk to myself for the last half an hour?
No, we definitely heard it all. So we're up
Yes,
to
I just thought I'd
questions. Is
throw
that
it
right?
over to some questions now and see if anyone like has anything that they want to ask.
I do.
Yeah.
Can you hear me? My issue is I work out a few days a week and I walk and I want to lose weight and it just doesn't budge. And I think I eat really quite well, but then I'm wondering, am I not eating enough? And then when I look at the breakdown of macros, I know about the protein, but I don't know the importance of the amount of fat as opposed to carbohydrates to make the rest up.
So when we're looking at wanting to change our body composition, like unless we know how many calories we need to eat, we're kind of guessing. So that's the first thing. Like, do you know how many calories you're trying to eat?
Yeah, I think I worked it out to about 1,700.
Okay. And so that is just a calculation you've done?
Well, I did it with Leanne and we just worked out what, can't remember how we got there, Leanne, can you?
So we would have gone off macros.
Yeah.
We would have gone off macros. And I believe when we did that, Trisha, we were talking about averaging it out over, that's obviously an average because some days you don't do all the strength training that you do.
Yeah.
And remember we talked about, if we're talking about calories, you can take over from here, Chanel, but talking about, we'll just try to manipulate and test over a few weeks how Trisha is responding to the amount of calories that she was consuming. But before we came even up with that number, I believe, Trisha, you were eating less than that.
Yeah, I was.
It's doing increase rather than decrease. It's just doing that with more educated way, which is over to you, Chanel.
And it could be that, look, the macronutrient breakdown actually does make it a big difference. Like if you're missing the protein, it means that you're only eating more carbohydrates and fats. So I guess what I would,
Yeah.
unless you want to go through and get everything done properly, look at, like Leanne said, testing and retesting, trying to up your protein and switch the macronutrient balance out and see if that makes any difference.
Yeah. Okay.
And the,
All right. I think my issue is when I go away a lot. So I do something for a few weeks and then it all goes up in the air because I'm
yeah, right.
not home.
So that's then like learning what you need to do. So when I'm working with either my program or my clients, it's actually teaching a lifestyle that it doesn't matter if you go away, you're still going to do it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
generally
picture
this
it.
is really common, is that we're really fine when we're at home because we can control the environment and we can make our meal prep and everything is like, we can control it. And then we go away and we're like, everything goes out the window. So what we need to learn are
Yeah.
skills, and actually what it just says is that the behaviors that you're trying to kind of create aren't strong enough, that it doesn't matter, because really it doesn't matter where you are.
Yeah.
No.
It shouldn't do, should it?
What it's saying is that the behaviors you're trying to like work on haven't become a lifestyle. So you're doing some
Yeah.
things and then you're going away and it's all going out the window.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Go into
yeah.
holiday
So,
mode
so
too
then
often.
what we want to do is get to the point where how you live doesn't matter where you are.
Mm.
Yeah.
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 Okay.
So I've got a question then with because we the RDA protein is recommended
Allowance.
daily
Yeah.
what's the word allowance was 0.8 of a
Yes.
gram, but that was just to survive. So I did see that the RDA for carbohydrates
Yeah.
is 130 grams. So what is your suggestion with carbohydrate grams per kilo of body weight for someone that does strength training? And I'd just like to put in here, when I started tracking my food as a strength athlete, I made a big mistake when I started using an app. I can't remember what the app was, but it was a training app for people that train. It was a food app where you enter all your, it was not MyFitnessPal, it was a different one. And it said, what intensity do you train at? Now, in my head, intensity is, man, I train hard, like, because I train heavy. What I learnt by mistake, by error, was that strength athletes don't actually require as the intensity that they're talking about in those type of apps is nowhere near even a CrossFit athlete or a triathlete, for example. So our carbohydrate requirements aren't as high as someone who would do even CrossFit or even like triathlon or cycling or running. So suggest for strength athletes as grams per kilo of body weight as a
I
general
can't
guide.
give you a number across generally because it really does come back to like the person, their size, their weight, their age, and also what they're doing. So like that, like say the four of us on here would all have different training. So all of us, our requirements are different. The 130 grams that you saw, that's actually like from America, but I put it there because most people don't understand like that carbohydrates have like a ceiling. That is for if you're sedentary, and that is also as a minimum requirement for like brain health and kind of what our body needs. So when we're looking at carbohydrates, it really comes back to like the individual and what they're trying to achieve. And like you said, so when I'm doing like calculations for someone, that portion of it is very important because we take into consideration like your training, what that looks like. And because like you mentioned, Leanne, even though you're not doing, say, CrossFit, you're still actually lifting a lot of load. So if you look at the tonnage, but your heart rate still gets high. You guys all know, like when you lift heavy weights, so we know that fuel is related to heart rate variability. It's so much, sports nutrition is very scientific, and it's a lot harder than just normal nutrition, quite frankly, because you're taking into consideration like the different types of sports, the different heart rates that come into consideration, that sort of thing. So like I tried to kind of talk about the carbohydrates this is where I see a lot of women, especially getting caught because they might have had success doing low carb. I had a client this week, actually. We talked through this. She's been on this cycle for the last 10 years of like, she feels really good when she goes low carb. She does it for probably 6 weeks. Then she's so tired. Her energy goes to crap because she's not eating carbohydrates, not getting fuel, then she can't sustain it. Literally goes the other way. So you can imagine her body composition she's not getting anywhere because she has 6 weeks on something and then it just goes back the other direction. So now, just like I spoke to you guys today, we're timing her carbohydrates around her training. She still reverts back to like pretty low carb for the rest of the day. Now she's fueled. She's got energy. She's just dropped 2 kilos in the last 2 weeks because her body feels stable. Like when we're under eating and we're under fueled and our macronutrients are out of balance, if you like, and we're going to talk about this next week, like how to build a plate and kind of put this into more of a practical term, our body feels stable and safe. When we are under eating or we're underbalanced, which is really easy to do, our body doesn't feel safe. And so then, like, if you're trying to lose belly fat, it's not going to be like feeling conducive to any inputs you're giving it because it just doesn't feel safe. It's like we are not getting what we need. It's like I kind of gave that example about the lady having toast for breakfast. Now, toast is just pretty much one carbohydrate, one macronutrient. So what happens when you just have toast for breakfast is you get a big spike in insulin, then you drop lower to before you started. And that's where you often will get like that, feeling crap, like feeling tired, needing to have it. We've all probably done it where we've had a big lunch and then 2 hours later we want to have a nap because, we've had this big surge of carbohydrates. This is where when you add protein or like oats this is what this girl was doing actually. She was having oats for breakfast and no protein with it. So when you get your 30 grams of protein with your oats, then there's no like big spikes. You've got this really good blood sugar stability. So your energy is really good across the day. You're not doing like these like spikes and troughs like with insulin spikes. So that's just, and we're going to talk a bit more about that next week, like little hacks for, say, like Trisha was saying about going on holidays. Everyone should be enjoying their life. Like my biggest kind of goal is teaching women they should be enjoying their food. Like hopefully next week when you get the recipes and you try them, you'll be like, I can't wait for breakfast because that tastes like cheesecake. And it does. And so you're excited and you're still hitting your goals, but you're excited to eat your food. That is what we should be doing. We don't have to eat chicken and broccoli to like get our body composition goals. Nothing against chicken and broccoli, but there's some nicer, more yummy food around that we should be looking forward to eating. And that's what I'm like passionate about teaching women, because when you understand how to do that and your food's balanced, then you actually get your body composition goals, you get your performance in the gym, and you feel great. People come to me all the time with like body composition goals. They, want to get rid of the belly fat or they want to like tone up. And and we get that and we teach them how to do it. But the byproduct is they get amazing energy. They have focus. The brain fog goes away. They sleep better. Like all of this stuff, like let's face it, we all want to look good in a bikini, but who cares if we're not happy? And we've got no energy, mood, focus, can't sleep. We can't lift our weights because we've got no energy, So it's about the whole package. And that's what food as a base of your nutrition gives you. Like if you can get that dialed in, you then feel your best. And that's what this is about. I can see I get a bit passionate about this.
I have another question, if that's all right.
Yes.
Alcohol. like I can get to the end of the day and I've got my macros pretty good and I've got 150 calories left. So I have a glass of wine and then I think, oh, am I wrecking things here? Like I know they're empty calories, but if I've got those calories left, does it matter if I have that wine?
Okay, there's some context around this. So firstly, it's like, how often are we having the wine?
Every day I'd have a glass of wine, but one glass.
So alcohol is metabolized in the body differently. So what happens is if you have your dinner and then you have a glass of wine, the dinner gets put on hold and the wine gets prioritized into your liver. Our
Right.
metabolism changes when alcohol comes into the picture. Now, you can definitely do that, Trisha, but if you've got body composition goals, I wouldn't recommend it. Now, from the point that it is just changing the process of like what your body is trying to achieve. So you can like, and this is where the calories in, calories out. Like, I am very much, that is like, it's a calculation that if you're eating less calories than what you're burning, then you will change your body composition. However, with alcohol, generally it won't help you get to that goal very quick. If if you're like, okay, you know what, I want to lose 5 kilos, that's my goal, I would actually commit to doing that. Like go, okay, my commitment is losing 5 kilos. Maybe I'll have a glass of wine on a Friday. That is what I'm going to do for the next 3 months. Once I get my goal, then I can decide what I want to do about it. Like when I'm working with people, managing alcohol consumption changes the outcome of your goals, regardless of the calories in, calories out, because just the way alcohol is metabolized. The other byproduct of it is that when we have a glass of wine, even if it's just one, it can change our motivation. So the next morning when we wake up, we don't feel as motivated to go and do our workout. We don't feel as good. Like we know that, unfortunately, alcohol just doesn't really serve us as well in this stage of life. We don't make the enzyme that digests it as much. From the age of 40, we stop making that enzyme. So that's why we have some trouble with alcohol and processing it as we age. So there's just some of those extra, it affects our sleeping. Like, unfortunately, there's no really, I'm like being the bearer of bad news here, but there's no positive to it, unfortunately. So you might enjoy it. You have to then go, and I'm just being real, right? From the fact that if you enjoy it, then I'm all about like working with things that you love. I'm just giving you the facts that if it was for a body from body composition, I would definitely manage it till you got your goals. But alcohol affects your sleep. There's no way around it. Like if you're having alcohol, your sleep is impacted, whether you want to admit it or not. It just is. Yeah. So
Okay.
so that then
All
affects
right.
other things, recovery, all that sort of thing. So I don't know if that answered your question very well, but if I was working with you as a client, I would suggest that, like maybe Friday or Saturday or on the weekends, like having it and then managing until you get your body composition goals, and then you can decide, because giving yourself a break as well. So if you're having a glass of wine every night, you actually don't know what it feels like not to do that. So if you then go, okay, I'm just going to have a wine on a Friday or a Saturday, give yourself like 6 or 8 weeks of doing that. You might go, you know what, I feel so much better. I'm going to keep doing because some of the things we do as humans, and this goes across all of like eating, drinking, is just habitual. So we might have done things from coping mechanisms, or we just get in habits of things, and we don't know how we feel unless we have a break. Yes.
Yeah. It's definitely a habit, because if I have a glass of mineral water instead, it's the same. I just got a glass there, so it's not like I'm getting an effect from the wine. It's just purely habit. So that's probably quite easy
And the
to
thing
change,
is,
I think.
often, so my husband, right, he can do whatever he wants and it doesn't affect him in any shape or form. And we are just not the same. So it just doesn't, as unfair as it is, he can have whatever, but I can't do that. It doesn't, it messes my sleep up. And then all these other things, so this can be problematic because, we see our partner doing all these things, but we can't do that. Just affects us differently. We're not the same.
Yeah. All right.
But
Thank you.
especially if you've got body composition goals, I think that could be just that one thing. It would be interesting to see if you changed it, whether that made a difference to,
Yeah. Well, I'll do that for the next month maybe and just see what happens before Christmas.
Well, tough time to do it, but you might want to wait till January. But you know what I mean? Giving it a test and seeing that's and you're already you're knowing how much you're eating, you're working with Leanne and you've got some plans. So then trying some of these things, it could be just changing the alcohol that makes the difference.
Yeah. All right. I'll give that a go.
Posted. Do you have any questions, Sue?
Yeah, I do actually. So can you hear me? Yeah. You can all hear me?
Yeah.
Yep. My goal is to get stronger. That's my number one goal. I'm happy enough with my body composition and everything else. But when you were talking about you're eating your 3 meals a day before, made me think seriously. So I pretty much hit all my macros, hit my protein, fats, carbs every day, but I eat about 8 times a day.
Is there a reason that you do that?
I don't like feeling full. So I've never been a eater that I can remember in my whole life being I can eat a big meal eater. I like to just have a bit and then 2 hours later, an hour and a half later, have another something. And so I reach my macros in that way. But am I eating into a deficit and then eating again to spike? Do you know what I mean? And then hitting a trough. Am I eating when I feel like there's a trough?
Well, do you?
And then eating again?
How is your energy?
Well, it varies. So some days I feel really strong. That's what brought the thought into my head. And other days I don't feel anywhere near as strong. So I have ups and downs.
Yeah.
But I know that at the end of the day, I've got where my goal was. But the way I got there may not be the best way.
So my only thought process, generally, like I just talked about, with protein, it's generally our consumption across the day. And saying that when we eat 30 grams of protein, we trigger protein muscle synthesis. So I don't know, do you have a normal dinner or do you break dinner up as well?
Dinner's probably the most normal meal of the day, but it's still, I might get my 30 grams of protein or more in my meat and then my carbs, my veggies, my potatoes, whatever. So it is fairly normal, but there's always enough left for me to then have a protein yogurt an hour later.
Yeah.
And
which is fine.
Maybe depending on what's left. Yeah.
Look,
yeah. So
I think it really comes back to how you feel. If you feel like your energy isn't as good as it could be, then you might want to experiment with. I personally eat 3 times a day. I'll say 4 if I'm today I haven't trained early. So if I train early, I'll have a pre-workout, which we'll talk more about next week.
Yeah.
That theoretically makes it 4. But the reason I eat 3 times a day is because as we go through, I work with women 40 plus, right? So we're talking about hormones and those changes already being in our body. So whether we're postmenopausal or not, the hormones make a difference because they all interact with each other. So insulin, which is one of the hormones, of course, insulin is the fat storage hormone. So if we're eating like 8 times a day, like you are, you're spiking that insulin like 8 times. So the reason I eat 3 times a day is I used to eat more. I used to be that person, like every 2 hours I had food in my bag. I was like going to die if I didn't eat, all this.
Yep.
That especially when, and you mentioned that you're not worried about body composition. So it might not be as important, but generally most women I'm working with, they're trying to like lose some belly fat, or they're trying to tone up, or they're trying to lose weight. Insulin matters then because it's the storage hormone. And if we're spiking it all day, then it's not going to let our body like release that weight either. So because it's basically working against us. So what we want to do is like eat, give our body that time to digest the food. And when we're eating our high protein and we're hitting it, that will take 4 or 5 hours. Then we'll be hungry for lunch. Then we'll eat our lunch. And then we've got another break of 4 or 5 hours. So I'll just share with you. I like to have a cup of tea and something sweet. And so I would have lunch, and then at 3 o'clock, I would have afternoon tea. I'd put the jug on, have a cup of tea, have something, like sweet. So now I will have that right after lunch. So I'll have my lunch, I'll have my cup of tea with something, a little something sweet right after lunch, and it's all digested together. And then I go through, and I go through dinner. So, and then dinner, I have dinner, and then I have protein ice cream after dinner. I have it straight after dinner. So it's one meal that's being digested. Because if you think about the process, when you understand, like part of studying to be a nutritionist is we have to learn the whole digestion system. Like, there is so much going on, turning food into energy. It is a massive outgoing system in our body. And when we have going all the time, you're probably using more energy just because your digestion isn't having a rest. It's just going all day.
Yeah.
It just comes down to how you feel. And if you think maybe your energy could be better, there's other things that can affect your energy as well. But it could be like, well, maybe I test out, changing that, like Trish is doing, give it a test for like 2 to 4 weeks. See how I feel, and if it makes any difference. If it does, then you'll be like, my energy is so much better. Okay, I'm going to do, or like, it doesn't make any difference. Like, okay, it doesn't make any difference. I go back to what I was doing.
Yeah, true. Well, there's obviously a problem, or I wouldn't have brought it up. So, yeah, I'll give it a try. Less meals, more food.
And when you think about eating, sometimes, like if you're eating every 2 hours, it takes time. Like it's a thing that, like you think about your day is actually just, and the reason I say this is because I used to do it, right? I was thinking about food all day. Because I would eat, and 2 hours later I'm eating again.
Yeah. Well, I'm retired, so I've got plenty of time to think about it. But yeah.
But like I said to you, it just comes down to like, if you're happy with that, then that's fine. And if you feel like you're operating at your best, no worries. But if you're not, and you're like, maybe my energy could be better, maybe test out like changing it up.
Yeah, will do. Thank you.
Great question though. Any other questions?
I don't think so.
That was pretty good questions. Thanks, guys. That's why I wanted you here, because it's great to have a variety of questions so that anyone coming into Strength Seekers in the future that watches this may have a similar question, and you guys have covered that. So we're really looking forward to Chanel next week in putting some of the principles into practice, like the how-tos. That's really important for people, just giving us some little tips and tricks on how to incorporate, the protein in like some of the meal prep ideas that you're talking about, some high protein sweet treats. I know that you're very good at those, because I get those a lot in emails, in your emails and things like that, because that's a really important thing for people to feel they're not missing out on all the good stuff. And we all know
Yes.
that we like something sweet. So if we can have something sweet that's actually contributing to our health and satisfying our need for sweet things, that's very valuable because it's a no-brainer. Well, for most people to be able to eat vegetables, salads, and meat, that's the staple. But the good stuff for a lot of people is the sweet things.
Yeah,
So
for sure.
that would be really handy. So thank you. Yeah, thank you so much for your time, and we'll stop this workshop here. But everyone just stay on the line for a second before we go. So thanks for being here.
Thank you.
You got anything final you want to do this workshop?
So next week we will just, like you
Chanel?
said, put everything into practice and give you some like hands-on tips, recipes. We'll make sure we get all of those bits and pieces for you guys as well.
All right.
Thanks,
Thanks so
guys.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's okay. Okay. All right. Thank Yeah, that was really good, actually. Yeah, because you sort of think you have a basic understanding, but it's really good to get it actually really explained and, take it all in. So it was great. Yeah. Mm. Yeah. Thanks, Chanel. Thank you. Bye. Bye. Thank